Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have two amazing guests to reintroduce to you now. Dr. Steve and Theresa Hughlett are returning guests on our show. Be sure to check out their first appearance on episode 480 of Boundless Body Radio. Dr. Steve Hughlett has been a clinical pharmacist for over 30 years in the hospital setting. He has given numerous talks to healthcare professionals and enjoys learning and educating others. His God given passion has always been to help people with their health. This has led him to change his focus from treating the unhealthy to trying to prevent others from becoming unhealthy. Dr. Hughlett is the author of the book, Your Plate is Your Fate, a simple guide to understanding how your food choices lead to more and more medications. He is also the host of one of my absolute favorite podcasts, the Simple Healthy Choices for Weight Loss podcast. And despite hosting me on the show last year, the podcast has been very successful and is full of very helpful information, especially if you are searching for answers to questions such as how to lose weight and keep it off, and if the ketogenic diet or any other low-carb diet is right for you. Steve has been married to his beautiful wife, Theresa, for over 38 years, and luckily she is joining us again today. Steve and Theresa, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you guys back to Boundless Body Radio.
Oh, it's so fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
It's such a joy to chat with you guys. I just love the time that we've got to spend together. I met you guys obviously at Low Carb Denver in 2023. We've been able to hang out in Austin a few times for different conferences, and it's so great to see you. You guys are healthy and happy and thriving, and I just love your energy and passion. And yeah, it's so great to have you guys back.
That's right back at you. We just love being around you. Your energy and your smile and your funness is just wonderful to be around. It's fresh. In today's time, so many people are upset and depressed about everything. It's great to get around people who actually feel good about themselves and are healthy and young and living quality lives. It's wonderful.
And also doing
Say that again. I'm sorry.
doing your passion.
Yeah, your passion. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I thank you very much. I think you guys understand what it's like when you finally find this subject and maybe even, working in this field, and it just doesn't seem like it's clicking. It wasn't working for my clients. I know it wasn't working very well for all the people you were writing prescriptions for all those years, and to find something alternative, it gives you so much joy to wow, this is actually working and truly helping people. This is why we all started to do this anyway,
It really does. It seriously does. I feel like I've helped so many more people since I've retired, because I've been retired for 3 years now, because I'm trying to get the word out to people how you don't need to be on medication and you should not be on medication, and you can prevent all of that just by eating healthy. But now that I've been telling other people that, and some people, I've got two friends. One was 525 pounds and one was 485 pounds. And been talking with them, and both of them have already lost around 45 pounds. Just like in the last 2 months, have lost 45 pounds.
Wow.
One of them said he hadn't been below 400 for 20 years, and he broke that. He's down below 400 now. So, it's so neat to see this and know that you're actually saving their lives. They know they're going to be on less medications and all that, but they don't realize that they are really helping prolong their life and giving them a better quality of life just by eating the proper food. It's really crazy.
That's amazing.
It's crazy we never got told it. I was in college for 12 years. And I've got several physician friends. None of us were ever given anything about nutrition all the way through school. It's all guided by drug companies here. If you have this condition, give this drug. If you have this condition, give this drug. If you have this adverse, hey, we have a drug for that too. And it's just what drugs prescribed for what disease. Like all our diseases are because we have some kind of chemical imbalance, and that couldn't be. Well, it's true, but the chemicals are food.
Yeah.
If you eat the nutrients your body needs, it's amazing what it's going to be able to do for you, health wise and quality of life. And people were about their weight. It's like, well, the weight is just part of it. That's part of it, but it's all the fat that's storing around your organs and the organ damage, and it's crazy. And knowing that no medications, probably 95% of the medications out there don't cure a single thing. They none of them cure. They all treat the symptoms. Like blood pressure is a symptom. High blood glucose and diabetes, that's a symptom. Diabetes isn't high blood glucose. It's insulin resistance. So, all these things that we're giving people medications to treat a symptom and let the underlying cause just go on and on and on. Drug companies love that. Food companies love that. They're making trillions of dollars off of us,
That's right.
but we don't have to put up with it, and
Yeah.
if we eat healthy, we can get out of that whole system. So Anyway,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to go off on that, but that is that is something I've definitely noticed in the last 3 years, how much better people do when they eat healthy.
Yeah, well, I so appreciate that, and it must have been so frustrating to not have that as part of the system. It's the reason why I don't blame any doctor for not knowing this stuff.
Oh,
You weren't
no.
taught it. It's not even
No.
an occurrence. You get on the other side of it, and you start thinking about it critically, and you're like, oh yeah, like cholesterol, the things we've been told about cholesterol, and the things the American Heart Association says, and like how the food companies are involved, and pharma, and the medical system, and like again, once you get on the other side of it, it makes sense. But to learn that stuff later in your life, it must have been crazy. I remember definitely feeling a bit of resistance. Like I was introduced to the work of Nina Teichol's pretty soon after she wrote her book, but I didn't actually read her book until about 2 years later, because I think I felt like there must have been some type of resistance. Like, okay, if she's right, and she might be, then all this other stuff that I learned might not be right. Did you experience any of that? Either one of you, like a kind of resistance of like, have I been telling people the wrong thing for my career?
Yes.
Well, about in 99, we did a 12-week program. I mean, this was 1999. So this is a long time ago. We read a book, we did a 12-week challenge, and we ate 6 meals a day. And it was a protein, carb. I don't even think fats were even,
No, they didn't say
they
that.
didn't say anything about fats. Keep them low. Fat-free cheese, fat-free dressings. And we did lose weight, and we did have to work out.
Yeah, we worked
but-
out every single day.
But I was starving, every 2 hours, I was like, is it time to eat yet? I mean, I was so hungry on that. We just couldn't keep up with it.
I was the same way. We were eating like every 3-4 hours, and I was starving to death when it came time to eat. It's like, what is going on? Now I know, but now it's weird. Now I can go. I mean, I really seriously could go 48 hours without eating, and it does not affect me at all. I don't get hungry. I don't get lightheaded. None of that stuff. When you teach your body to use your own fat for its energy source, you don't have any of those issues. But we definitely found out that, and we felt stupid because we were telling everybody the same thing everybody else was saying: eat meals. Just keep your portion small. Eat the same stuff. Although we did stop soda pop during that, so we did lose weight. But I think I was a Dr. Pepper and a Mountain Dew addict, and that was it. Since 2000, I haven't had soda pop.
We used to have lots of hamburger helper, tuna helper, the boxed food. I mean, you just think it's food.
Yeah.
And I was adding tuna. I was adding hamburger meat. So this is pretty healthy.
And that's what
you can eat it. Doesn't mean it's food.
Yeah.
Yeah. We aren't dying immediately. And that's the problem of it. It doesn't kill you immediately. I mean, if you ate this kind of stuff and you killed over dead, people say, "Oh, I better not eat that." But since it takes 20 to 30 years of eating the same way, keeping your insulin levels high the whole time, stuffing your fat cells, since it takes so long, people don't even realize that has to do with each other. It's crazy. And Theresa even reminded me, it's like talking to people now, people don't even know what proper nutrition is. They don't even know what is nutrition. What does nutrition even mean?
Right. You were at work and a girl asked him what were foods or carbohydrates.
Yeah. She had no idea what a carbohydrate was. Like, I could see that. Why would you?
Yeah.
So
we forget because we're so engulfed with it. We go to these conferences, we read everything, everything is all consuming. And then you just kind of forget. People don't have any idea.
So if anybody listening doesn't know what a carbohydrate is, it's a plant. anything made from a plant. If it grows out of the ground, it's a carbohydrate.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Oh, it's funny you mentioned 1999. I remember everybody was doing that diet. It was like the Atkins thing was kind of coming back a little bit, and people were doing like Body for Life back in the time. But again, you mentioned the dates. It was the late 90s, and so it wasn't the original Atkins. This was like fat phobic. Yeah, we're going to get some protein, but it's going to be chicken breast or fish. And I specifically remember like my dad being just grumpy. Like all these people were just so grumpy and hangry all the time. Like, yeah, they lost weight, but they weren't very fun to be around.
Right. Well, and then we knew somebody so we had done the Body for Life, had great results. Not that we were real big, but we still had really good, because we were working out 6 times a week. And so she was doing Atkins. And we were like, that's terrible. And she was having fantastic success with it.
Yeah. And she felt good.
Yeah, she felt good. She lost weight. And we're just like, no, that can't be. Because the way we learned is the correct way.
So
do you recall at that time, was she doing more fat? Was she doing like the original version of
Atkins? So, right. So she would go to McDonald's and get a cheeseburger or a quarter pounder and just take the hamburger bun off. and just eat it that way. And she would,
which, you know,
yeah, it
well,
would
people
all
do that,
work,
and
but
that's
there
fine.
was no focus on whole foods.
Yeah,
So,
and omega-3s versus omega-6s,
Right.
you know, and trying to get your omega-3s, because that's the important thing. And I think that's kind of the only place that Atkins kind of veered. He didn't really tell anybody about the difference between the omega-3 and omega-6s. So they're eating all these, you know, processed stuff, which is basically all omega-6s, you know, especially if you're having the vegetable and seed oils, which are so toxic to our bodies. But now we're learning what true nutrition is. Like, oh, well, shoot, he was not wrong.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. I want to say what I said in the introduction. I love your podcast. If I have some extra time, it's one that I can just start from any episode, and whether it's a solo, whether it's the two of you, which I prefer. I always prefer the two of you do the episodes together. But Steve, even if it's just you, even if it's just a solo episode or interview, it's awesome. It's really, really good. And you can just let it play because it's going to cover a lot of really relevant kind of topics and things that a lot of people are talking about. And something I've been thinking about that you've done such a good job on your podcast is talking about specific conditions and specific medications that we use to treat some of these diseases. And if somebody were taking a medication and there were no side effects and the result was kind of benign and there was only maybe an upside to taking a medication, it might help with something like cholesterol or diabetes or whatever it is, that's fine. You know what I mean? Like people can do that. But the problem is a lot of these pharmacological agents have terrible side effects.
100%.
And I feel like they're so much more prevalent than people say. They're more prevalent than the numbers posted on the website or the commercials that I have to endure during a football game or whatever. Like, I think it's a bigger problem. And so I was hoping we could kind of like talk about that a little bit today and some of the things that people can be looking out for, because I don't know many people who aren't on a statin or aren't on a blood pressure medication. Weird things happen and then they get put on other medications. It just seems to be this big problem that nobody's really talking enough about.
Right. And I so much agree. And it's really been actually irritating. It actually makes me mad once I've gotten out and I see what the pharmaceutical and what the food companies have been doing to us, because they are making trillions of dollars. And you brought up statins. I mean, it's the exact same thing. I did a whole podcast on statins. Statins, they were originally made because they resembled cancer, and so Japan, they were looking at that, trying to study cancer. And somebody in in a drug company in Texas thought, hey, look, this lowers cholesterol. And back then, they thought that high blood cholesterol is what caused heart attacks. Now we know that's not true. However, the drug companies and food companies and everybody else, the American Diabetic Association, everybody else, they're still trying to push that on people. The reason why is because statins, by 2022, they made $172 billion on statins. So there's no way they're going to tell people, oh, high LDLs, we were wrong. That's not what causes cardiovascular disease. They're never going to say that because they're making way too much money. And what's bad is these statins don't have anything good. They're poison to your cells. So that's why people have all the adverse effects they have. They have the muscle pain, they have the nerve pain, they have the joint pain, they have foggy heads. It's because the statins are actually killing them. So it's crazy. And I read an entire book, and the whole book was just all about statins, exactly how they work and everything. And it was eye-opening, and it made so much sense. But same thing with blood pressure medicine. Again, blood pressure that's just a symptom. All these medications that you take for blood pressure, again, blood pressure is just a symptom. I did a whole podcast just on carbohydrate, just all the different ways that carbohydrates cause high blood pressure. So the easy thing to do is get off carbohydrates, especially man-made carbs, and your blood pressure will come down. And that's the problem that I really haven't been telling a lot of the patients that I've been talking with is when you start eating this healthy way, and that's what they're doing, as they start eating the healthy way, and their fat starts coming off and their blood pressure starts going down and their blood sugar starts going down, you have to be in constant contact with your physician, because you will have to start modifying your medications because you will get off of it. And so you do want to wean off. So some you can stop, but most of them you have to wean off of. And it's been so fun. Even the 525 pound guy that used to be 525 pounds, even he was taking the Ozempic, and now after I talked to him about Ozempic and all the horrible, horrible adverse effects of Ozempic and how Ozempic really works and actually makes your diabetes and everything worse, he's been monitoring his blood sugar, and he hasn't had to take Ozempic for the last 2 months. He hasn't had any, and he's not giving himself insulin. He's been watching his insulin, and he hasn't had to. His insulins haven't been high. I'm like, well, that's right. Because the reason your blood glucose is high is because carbohydrates get turned into glucose, and so if you don't eat carbohydrates and you're not putting glucose in your blood, and so you don't have to take so many medications because of the adverse effects. I mean, they're crazy. I mean, cancer. I mean, these are huge: cardiovascular disease, cancer, Alzheimer's. I mean, the adverse effects of some of these drugs are just horrible. I wish, you brought up the Super Bowl. I wish people, when they saw a drug commercial, I wish they get in the habit of just closing their eyes immediately. Just close your eyes and listen to what's being said, because that they're doing that to distract you. They have to. They didn't used to be able to do that. They didn't used to be able to first, they never used to advertise drugs at all.
And this was just even in the 90s.
Yeah. I was already Dr. Pharmacy when this was happening too. You weren't supposed to advertise drugs at all. And then they said, okay, if you do a drug, you can say what the drug is, but you can't say what it's for. Or you can say what it's for, but you can't say what it is. You have to ask your doctor. Well, then it kept on going because drug companies became able to get in with the government and everything, which is a whole nother issue. But now they've made it to where they can have the commercial. They can say what it's for. They can say what it's for, but they have to put in some of the adverse effects, which like with these GLP-1 antagonists or agonists, there's well over 50 adverse effects. I mean, like I counted them one day because I'm getting ready to give talks on them. There's over 50 adverse effects to each of these not semaglutides, but the GLP-1 agonists, because there's several different GLP-1 agonists. Semaglutide is just one of them. I guess they did the most marketing or something. I don't know why everybody talks about that one. But that's what's happening is all these people on medication, they don't realize all the adverse effects. And then if they do have an adverse effect, they don't even think that maybe that's caused from this drug, And so very few, even with 50 known adverse effects, they're only about 1% of all adverse effects actually get reported into the drug companies from the physicians, because most people just deal with it, don't know what it is. And so there's probably a lot more than we even know. But anyway, so if they would just do that, just shut your eyes and listen to what's being said, because the adverse effects of these drugs are just absolutely crazy. They may fix a rash on your arm, but yet they end up causing cardiovascular disease. I mean,
we'll listen to several and they'll say, you're watching this wonderful little, or I'm watching, his eyes are closed.
Because I do that.
Well, just like they're in this field having a picnic, whatever. And it's like, and the one side effect is, and may cause death.
Yeah. A lot of them say that. And yeah, there have been death.
Okay.
Well, but have you seen this rash? It's really bad. which now rashes, now we also know how much rashes and body things are because of the high glucose. People keep the glucose so high, you're glycating every cell in your body. So, I mean, you get rashes, you get everything. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't be bringing down a high blood glucose, and the doctor's hands are tied. If you're going to continue to eat glucose and make your glucose high, all the doctors can do is give you medication that's either going to stimulate pancreas, produce more insulin, or give you insulin to bring that glucose down. Yeah. What I don't like is they're telling everybody that by bringing their glucose down, that's good. That's all you need to worry about. When really they're making it worse because they're making the insulin levels go high, which makes insulin resistance worse. And that's what I don't like. We aren't telling people the full truth about what's going on. And now I finally can. Now I can get out here and actually tell people what's truly going on and what's important.
That's amazing. That's why I love the work of both of you. You pointed something out in one of your episodes about the news and the news cycle and how, I don't watch the news to my dad's chagrin. He's a sportscaster, and I don't even watch him on the nightly news. It's been years since I've seen him. He'd love for me to watch. I don't watch him. Anyway, the nightly news, the point of the news is to be so negative and you see all the worst news. It's not happening around you or in your neighborhood. It's happening in some other place, and it's always the worst. And then you see this amazing, bright Trulicity commercial, and the person's riding the bike down the street, and there's flowers and all this great stuff. And then you hear the voice saying all the amazing things that you could die from. It never occurred to me that cycle is feeding off itself. We're using fear and then selling you this amazing, bright looking, shiny pill that you can take to help alleviate that. It's pretty, I don't know, just very evil.
It is. And that's RJ Reynolds and Philip Morris is what started that. They were the people who were they were big proponents. They were the people who marketed how important cigarettes are and that cigarettes are so good. And then all of a sudden they started going down. I won't go way into this, but when cigarette sales started going down, when they found out that everybody was lying to them about cigarettes too, all the tobacco companies were lying about cigarettes and lying about the studies. Now people started dying of cigarettes. So R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris went over and they ended up buying 3 of the food companies and teaching them how to get people addicted. And it's the 5 A's. You have to have advertising, like we were saying, is one. Availability, you got to make it very easily available everywhere, affordable. Everybody can take this. You have to put addicted substances in it, which that's why they put sugar and salt and caffeine in everything. And then age. At least with cigarettes, they weren't allowed to market to people less than 10 years old. But now with food, they put the same toxic stuff they put in all this other man-made food, and they even put it in infant formulas. Some of these infant formulas have up to 55% high fructose corn syrup in it. It's I think it's criminal that they keep giving the same food to everybody and keep trying to get people addicted, and they're making trillions off of it. And drug companies aren't going to say anything because they want you getting sick because now they have a medicine for it. And don't worry if it causes an adverse effect, which it will. We have a drug to take care of that as well. And I never really thought about what was going on until we got out of this, started reading more, started looking at nutrition information. I go into all these conferences that we've been going to, where we ran into you, where we met you and everything. And you see all these physicians out there that are talking about the same thing. They came to the same awareness. It's, oh my gosh, what have we been doing, pushing all these drugs on people instead of talking to them about true health, which is truly giving your body the nutrients that it needs. I mean, look at us. We've gone all these years from the very beginning of time, and we've been living through all the things just by giving our body the nutrients it needs. I was looking at a study the other day, and it's talking about our life expectancy, and it took 38 of the top countries, and of the 38 countries, we were the only ones that our life expectancy has gone down for the last 5 years. It keeps going down. Everybody else's is still going up so they can live longer. And this information they get from insurance companies, because insurance companies keep very, very close track on, okay, how long are we going to have to be giving these people, money and all this. So they're the ones who looked at it. So they have a lot of people to look at. And we're the only country where our life expectancy is going down because we're the only country that eats all the same kind of horrible, horrible man-made food that we do. It's not even the same in England. I mean, England, they have their issues, but if you look at a bag of Doritos over there and a bag of Doritos over here, I mean, they don't even have the same. At least they keep some of this toxic stuff out, and America doesn't. We let anything and everything go, and it just drives me crazy.
Isn't it down to like the dyes in cereal, like Fruit Loops or whatever? Like Fruit Loops are different in every other country because they're not as like bright or shiny, but they are in America because we use whatever like toxic dye we can throw in there.
Yeah. And even the dyes, people don't realize the dyes. These man-made food has no nutrients at all. I mean, it's all chemicals. It's just basically it's all chemicals and carbohydrates. And people don't realize even, artificial flavoring, artificial coloring, artificial sweeteners, those are all just chemicals. And the artificial coloring they've seen, we may have talked about this in our last podcast too, but like with the red dyes that are in this food is actually causing extreme hyperactivity in kids. And they're seeing this more and more. And so now they're actually taking kids off of this red dyes and their hyperactivity goes away. And I actually work with one of my pharmacy technicians, her little brother and little sister. They both were super, super hyper, and they were wanting to start them on ADD meds. And the mom ran across an article about red dyes causing that. And just by chance, she took all the red dyes out and quit doing it. And it was, I don't remember how quick, but it was quick. It was like within a couple of weeks, all of a sudden the kids weren't hyper anymore. They were all calm. They didn't have to go on ADD meds, all because of these chemicals they're putting in this man-made food. It just, I don't know. I don't know how many times I'd say it makes me sick.
It's so sad. It's so sad, and it's become the normal because it's so prevalent out there. And so I wanted to use this opportunity to highlight some of these kind of medications that we've been using. I want to talk to you a little bit about the upsides, potentially the downsides that come with that. Obviously, at the end, we're going to tie this all together and show that, yeah, we're talking about a few different separate things here, but we're really talking about one thing. A chronic disease has many different manifestations that all have the same kind of roots in the same trunk of the tree with different, again, manifestations. Right. I did want to start by asking you what we've already mentioned, statins. Statin drugs are designed to lower cholesterol. We've been told for, a century. half a century that high levels of cholesterol are bad for you. So we want to reduce that. We could do that by eating different things in the diet. So we've been promoting the consumption of vegetable oils, seed oils, polyunsaturated fats, replacing saturated fats, which we know will reduce your cholesterol for sure. You can also do that pharmacologically, where you're taking a pill, a statin drug. You said there's almost no value in a statin drug.
Right.
Explain that for people, because I'm hearing so many people. Not only did I know that tons of people were being on it, but it's just more and more and more. The ages get younger and younger and younger. I just talked to somebody in their 40s who is now on one and hates it. Like, tell us a little bit about why we thought that this drug could help us. Has it been effective, and what are the downsides?
The first thing is because they tell you that LDLs, high LDLs, which is they say it's cholesterol. LDL isn't cholesterol. It's a protein and cholesterol and triglycerides all together in one big lump. That's why it's called a lipoprotein. But they've been telling everybody that LDLs is what causes cardiovascular disease, and it's been proven over and over and over that that is not true. LDLs don't have anything to do with, don't really have anything to do with it. But LDLs, there's good LDLs and there's bad LDLs. What makes the bad LDLs is eating so many carbohydrates that your liver has to turn all those carbohydrates into fat by what triglycerides and store that as fat. That's what's going on. And so when you take a cholesterol medicine, every single cell in your body makes cholesterol. Cholesterol is vital to our existence. A lot of our hormones like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, vitamin D, cortisol, those are all hormones that are made out of cholesterol. Every single cell in your body is made out of fat. It has a fatty membrane in it. I mean, every single cell makes cholesterol. That's how important it is. Our brain uses 20 to 25% of all the cholesterol that our body makes. It is valuable. The way statins work is they block that. When a cell is, because your cell takes cholesterol and it turns it into a whole bunch of different things that your body needs. So cholesterol really is kind of like the base that your cell needs. When your cell doesn't have any cholesterol, if you're taking a statin and it doesn't have any cholesterol because the statins are keeping that, statins, they block that system inside the cell. That's what happens. A statin gets inside the cell. It blocks the system of how the cell can turn that cholesterol and all these other vital nutrients that our body needs. So when the statin blocks that, that means it's blocking the cell from doing its function. It can't produce all these other things that is made out of cholesterol. So your body starts going into a survival mode. It's like, whoa. I need cholesterol in here so I can make all these things that I do. So what it does is the cell upregulates. It puts more receptors all around the outside of it. So any cholesterol that's coming by through your bloodstream, it can grab it easier and pull that cholesterol into it so it can start making its stuff. So the reason statins work is your body is lowering your blood cholesterol because it's trying to pull it inside to try to make these vital things that you need. So you're killing the cell with a statin, and as it's dying, it's trying to get cholesterol as a last ditch effort. But they don't tell people that. All they say is, look at your blood cholesterol. It's going down. All right, isn't that great? They don't tell you that you're killing your cells. You have to see that by all the numerous adverse effects that people have. And that's what's happening. You're killing your muscle cells. You're killing your nerve cells. You're killing your heart. You're killing all the cells in your body because you're starving them from the cholesterol that's desperately needed. And again, so there's nothing good about it. You don't need to be bringing down the LLs. If you want to bring down the bad LDLs, you quit eating carbohydrates, because the bad LDLs are made out of excessive glucose that gets turned into triglycerides. So, I mean, again, I never knew any of this. I never knew this. I just knew if they have high cholesterol, you give them a statin. That's just the way it is. I never looked at it any further than that. And when I did, it made me sick. And, you know, I all I'm saying is every single friend and family member that I know, that I love, I told them to stop their statins immediately. And they have. When I found out what statins were really doing, and the only reason that they're still promoting it is because the ungodly amounts of money, and they make so much money. I've read so much since then. It's crazy. They make so much money that they don't care about all the adverse effect about them getting sued, because they will gladly pay out the money to sell that out of court because they're making so much money on the selling of these drugs. it makes me sick. It really, really does. So, and I'm not telling everybody else to do that. You do not do that. You do your own thing. I'm just saying, I told my family, my brother, I told my brother to get off it. I told my cousins to get off it. I've told my friends to get off of it. Because once I found that out, it was just crazy.
Oh my goodness. It's infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating. One woman I talked to just this week was saying that her heart disease runs in her family. She's been on a statin for decades at this point. She's in probably her 50s or whatever. And you can see the resistance, not that she doesn't want to get off of it, because she does want to get off of it. And she understands when I'm explaining some of these things to her, but there's like a a psychological kind of dependency to it. Like, you can tell she's a little bit scared about going off of the statin that she thinks is kind of protecting her.
Yes.
It's so wild.
Her doctor's been telling her that for a year and prescribing it. So,
and her doctor believes it. He truly believes it. And I totally 100% agree. I understand. I don't agree, but I totally understand where they're coming from. They don't know. They don't know this stuff either. Unless you go off grid and you start reading all this stuff on your own, you're under the whims of whatever the drug company comes out here and tells you need to be prescribing next.
Yep.
So it's not the doctor's fault at all.
Right. Yeah, we just we interviewed Dr. Kate Shanahan recently. She just came out with her new book, Dark Calories, which is really great, all about vegetable oils. And she writes extensively about how much she hates statins. And she recommended a video that I ended up going and watching, which was a video that said statins made me stupid. And this guy is talking about his experience on a statin and how he started taking it because they were worried about his cholesterol. He was on a 40 milligram dose of whatever one he was on. He said it was kind of a moderate dose, and his brain was just failing him. He would forget things. He'd walk into one room and forget why he went in that room to begin with. He would play, different games with his family and couldn't remember easy sequences and stuff that he was remembering like a week or two ago. And he was still on board with I really want to do something about my cholesterol and I'm not sure what to do. So I'm like reducing my dose and I don't know what else to do. I don't know if 5 milligrams even does much, but that's all I'm taking now. And it's like, man, even he acknowledged, I really want to drop my cholesterol, but these trade-offs, I don't know if they're worth it. I'm not really sure. And it's like, dude, if you only knew.
Yeah, exactly. And now, if he hears this, he'll see, oh, that's why I was acting the way, because the brain uses 25% of all the cholesterol your body makes. Every single cell in your body makes cholesterol. Your liver makes about 80% of it, but every single cell can. So you're actually killing your nerve cells in your brain. And that's exactly what they're seeing. You're starving these cells. You're killing them by doing this stuff. So that's one drug that you can't just stop. You don't need to wean off because there's nothing positive about it. But that's what sucks, because the American Diabetic Association, the American Heart Association, obviously the FDA and all them, everybody is still pushing this, that high LDLs is what causes cardiovascular disease. But that's why they're pushing it, because they are making lots and lots and lots and lots of money. And we never, it's just crazy. Just like going into the government, not being able to do some of these stuffs. And now when Obama came in, he started allowing drug companies and government to start commingling. And now the drug companies have more lobbyists in our Congress than any other group. They have up to 2 lobbyists per congressman in our thing. So that's why they're writing all these laws. They're writing all these things that are just making everybody sick, but making them lots of money. There's so much money to transfer in hands up there at the expense of us. And that's why in one of my talks, that's why I'm saying if you're obese and if you're unhealthy, it is not your fault, but it is your responsibility, because right now, after you listen to these podcasts and see all these things, now you realize, oh, I have been lied to, and I need to take my health into my own hands, which sucks. But when you do, and that's what these people are doing. There's another friend of mine that I've been helping. He was heavy, and he contacted me, and his doctor wanted to put him on diabetic meds, cholesterol meds, and
I don't know.
Oh, sugar on diabetic meds, cholesterol meds, and blood pressure meds. And he'd been listening to my podcast, and I actually went to school with him, so I haven't heard from him I graduated in 1980, so I haven't heard from him since then. And he contacted me.
Long time ago.
Long time ago there, Casey. But he contacted me and he asked me what I thought. And so I told him exactly what we talk about, and so he did it. And he contacted me. He was so happy. He just contacted me last month? Last month. So he had his labs a year ago. And then last month he went in for his annual. He had his labs again. He didn't even leave the doctor's office. He was so happy. He contacted me. He photographed his labs. He sent it to me. He said, look at this. said my doctors could not believe his triglycerides went down from, I don't even remember. I don't even want to guess. There were some like 250 and then went down to like 71. I mean,
Wow.
it was so wonderful. But his doctor's like, and he knew his doctor, they're friends, and they know people that they play basketball with. And so they're friends. So he said, you go and tell yada, 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 these other friends, tell them what you did. Because first thing he said, so how did you do this? Did you lay off the red meat? Is that what you did? Laid off the red meat and got away from fat and cholesterol? He's like, no. He said, I did the exact opposite. He said, I ate a lot of red meat. I said, it's full fat. He said, I just got off all the man-made products, all the sugar, all the flour, all that stuff. And he's like, you have got to go tell everybody. He said, I had no idea. And then he took him 2 copies of my book, gave him my book and said, here, you can pass this out to one of your other physician friends.
I love it. I love it. That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. What an amazing way to help people out there. I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
I did want to talk to you about diabetes drugs as well. And the lines get a little blurry as we're talking about some of these, new molecules that are coming out. We use some of these drugs for diabetes. We also use them for weight loss. We could talk about the difference between the two, even though it's the same molecule. The dosages are different and the effect seems to be very, very different. You mentioned, Ozempic, the GLP-1 agonists, I believe, semaglutide, all this stuff. Very trendy, very hot. There's other classes of diabetes meds, but can you tell us what the strategy has been in diabetes as far as medications and why our strategy has not been the right one?
Yeah, the strategy that's always been is because that's what we push is get the cholesterol down. Yeah, I mean, get the glucose down. That's the whole thing. Diabetes is this is them saying this. This is not me saying this. They're saying diabetes is glucose. You do not want high glucose, and I agree with that because you do glycate. The glucose affects every single cell. It tears up your proteins in your body, and it does cause issues. So you do need to get the glucose down. However, what they don't tell everybody is the way that they're getting the glucose down with Ozempic and with all the other diabetic medicine. Almost everyone. Metformin is a little bit different. The metformin is a little bit different. It doesn't actually cause your pancreas to stimulate insulin, to produce insulin. It actually increases the insulin sensitivity and decrease the absorption from the gut and stuff like that. But still, the whole thing is trying to get the glucose down, which automatically makes you think, well, if I'm trying to get the glucose down in my blood, where's the glucose coming from?
Thank you.
It's coming from what you eat. I mean,
where does it go?
Yeah. And it gets turned into fat and stuffed into your fat cells is where it goes. That's what's crazy. So the problem with the diabetic medications, and this is why you talk to people about Ozempic, there's some people who just, as you know, they just love Ozempic. It's like, oh my gosh, this is a miracle drug. This is great. My weight's down, my A1C's down. But they don't get what's going on behind the scenes because what's happening is, yes, their glucose is going to come down. Why? Because that's what GLP does. Our body secretes GLP. It secretes it from the intestines because it does not want a high blood glucose. So it keeps food in your stomach for longer. So that glucose will slowly come out. When it goes in your intestines, gets broken glucose, goes in your blood, and your glucose starts to rise. So GLP also stimulates your pancreas to produce insulin. So now you have insulin that's trying to bring that glucose down. So yeah, you're losing weight because you're not eating as much because you kept food in their stomach for a longer period of time. A really bad thing about that is you give these GLP-1s, you give it once a week. So where normal, your body will secrete GLP and GIP, it'll secrete it after a meal. So you eat a meal, it secretes it. It slowly lets the carbohydrates out, slowly puts carbohydrates in so it doesn't raise as high, and then it stimulates insulin to bring it down. However, there's also another hormone in our gut called DPP-4, and we have a drug that blocks this too, but DPP-4 is also secreted, and that blocks GLP, so it brings your insulin levels back down again because your body doesn't want high insulin levels also. But now we have a drug that'll block DPP-4, and a lot of people are on these, like Januvia and all this. They block DPP-4, so it keeps your insulin levels high again. So now you have 2 different ways of keeping your insulin levels high, which makes everything worse. But people don't get that because they're thinking, oh, my A1C is going down and I'm losing weight. but they keep eating the same stuff. And that's really a bad thing. Besides all the adverse effects, they don't change what they eat. It's like giving a poor person $1 million. They don't become rich because they have no idea how to handle money. They've never handled it before. They don't know how to handle it. They're going to go broke. It's the same thing. If you've got somebody that's eating horrible man-made food, and all you do is give them something that will make it where you don't see what's going on in all this man-made food, and your weight's coming down, your A1C's coming down.
Eating less of that food.
Yeah, and less of that. Yeah, you can eat less, but you're still eating the same horrible stuff. So the ones who truly do well on it are the ones that only use the GLP-1s, like the Ozempic and everything. Use it to get over your carbohydrate addiction. Use it to help keep you feeling full as you start switching the type of food that you eat over from man-made food over to God-made food. Real meat, real fat, real fruits, real vegetables. Stick to that and let your body, your system work the way it's supposed to. That's what people need to do, and they're not doing it. They're just giving them the shot. But since it makes the insulin levels high, it is going to be increasing the fat, and they are going to be getting worse and worse and worse. So this weight loss isn't going to be lasting that long. And like I said, there's so many different adverse effects, including cancer, that goes along with these. And the more you sit here and give you this thing, thinking you're getting the easy way out, you're not, and you're going to be getting all these adverse effects. So the basic way, if you want to keep food in your stomach, if you want to not be hungry, stay away from carbs. Protein and fat stay in your intestine, stay in your stomach for long periods of time because it takes a lot more acid to break those down. Then when they get in the intestines, they stay in the intestines for a lot longer time because it takes longer to break it down. And as fat and protein goes through your intestines, you stimulate these two hormones called peptide YY and cholecystokinin. These two hormones, when they're stimulated by fat and protein, goes up to the medial hypothalamus in your brain and says, I'm not hungry, quit eating. So just the fact that you eat fat and meat, it keeps you full for long periods of time. Carbohydrates don't do any of that. They get broken down very easy. They get in the intestines very easy. They get in your bloodstream very easy. You skyrocket your glucose, you skyrocket your insulin, and then all of a sudden high insulin causes you to turn that into fat and store it. So it's if you want to lose weight and you want to feel good and you don't want to be on meds, eat God-made food. I mean, it's just that simple. And it's crazy that we have to do all this. We have to write books and do podcasts and give talks and do all these things just to try to get people to eat the way we used to eat before our new dietary guidelines came out. Yep. It's crazy. I don't know if I already said it, but that's something else I found is like, we are the only humans. I heard this just about a month or so ago. I was like, animals. Humans are the only animals in the world that have to be told what to eat. No other animal has to be told what to eat. And we never had to be told what to eat up until our dietary guidelines came out in 1977, when all of our diseases went absolutely skyrocketing when those new guidelines came out for telling everybody that eating fat was bad. Eating fat's going to make you fat. And they think, oh, that makes common sense. I believe it. And it was the worst thing that could have ever happened. Thing could have ever happened. So just go back and eat the way we did before our guidelines came out, and you'll be better. But they've done a great work with their. Oh, we were talking about that earlier. How they get people addicted, and advertising was one. They've done great with their advertising, and like you said, that's what they'll do. They'll scare you with the news, and then after you're scared with the news, then they'll show you a commercial of this nice, comfort food. Here's this comfort food. Eat this. Oh, aren't they having happy? And then the next thing, you having happy. And then you go and you take a drug. Don't worry if that food makes you sick, because we got a drug for that. Don't care if it makes an adverse effect, because we got a drug for that too. And then they repeat it. Bad news, food, meds. And that it's over and over and over, and it's working. People are absolutely brainwashed into thinking that man-made food is truly food, and it is not food at all. There's no nutrients in that stuff at all. It's horrible.
Well, I appreciate the analogy that you gave. It's funny, as soon as you said, poor people spending lots of money, I remember the movie Dumb and Dumber, where they find the briefcase of cash. They just spend it on everything, and they're left with the briefcase full of IOUs. And no different. No, it's crazy. We had this conversation a year ago. You were talking about Ozempic, and they were starting to get a little bit more popular. But even 1 year on, we see almost every day there's a new kind of side effect or something. Like everybody's talking now about Ozempic face. Now you get all like saggy as you're taking this. And like we said, like when you're taking this medication for diabetes, from what I've learned about it, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like the dosage and the strategy is very, very different. I've heard for diabetes, you take a low dose, you keep it on that low dose, and it's designed, the way it works is maybe a little bit less in the gut, but more in the brain to kind of tell you that you're full. With weight loss, what I've heard is that you ramp up and ramp up and ramp up and ramp up the dose until the person can't tolerate the side effects. And then the effect really transfers to the gut, where it's very much slowing down your gut motility. You're keeping food in your intestines and your guts for a very, very long time. I've heard people complaining about belches that tasted like roadkill and all these just nasty things from having food putrefying in your stomach, from what it sounds like. Do I understand that correctly?
Pretty much. I mean, again, GLP-1 and GIP, they are hormones that our body actually, incretins that our body actually secretes, for that reason. You brought up a really good thing. For me, I'm not going to go into dosing. I know that I just listened to a whole podcast of a girl that she's doing micro dosing because of that. You don't need, she thinks we're way overdosing those Ozempic. I think we're way overusing it, period. I don't think we should be using it all. But that brings up a really good effect. And I think people think that physicians and scientists and all this, they just know everything about the body. And the fact is we don't know anything about the body. We know so little. Our body, God has made the most immaculate little machine here. What our body does is absolutely amazing. And what we do is we go and we find one little thing and we fix that with a drug, but we don't realize that the way that works, it actually affects all these other systems in the body as well. And GLP is a perfect example. GLP, they actually manufacture that because they know that GLP is something that our bodies actually secrete to keep food in your stomach. So they made it. However, they made it where it lasts for an entire week. So now you're constantly stimulating to keep food in your stomach. You're constantly stimulating your insulin to be secreted, which is horrible because our natural doesn't do that. Our natural does it after we eat a meal. After we eat a meal, it secretes it. Then DPP-4 comes, bring the insulin level back down, and then it stops. And it waits till your next meal. With these drugs, they're staying up all the time. And by doing that, they're finding out that there's GLP, and I don't quote me on this because I don't know. I'm just going by what this physician was saying in this podcast. But just like you just said, they found out there's GLP receptors all over the body that we weren't aware of it. We weren't aware. We didn't know until we started getting on this GLP. Now we're finding all these adverse effects because we find out that there's GLP receptors other places also. That's how medicine is. We fix one thing, and then all of a sudden we find out that it affects so many other things in the body. So it's like taking Benadryl, you're talking about different things, whether you take it for diabetes or weight loss, right? It's the same thing. It does the same thing. It does whatever you call it. You take Benadryl because you have a runny nose, but you take Benadryl if you can't sleep at night, and you take Benadryl if you have an adverse reaction to something. Same Benadryl, same stuff. It stops histamine release. It just so happens that histamine affects a lot of things in your body, so that's why it does it. Same thing with the GLP-1s. We've taken to do this little bitty thing with the stomach, and we don't realize we're raising our insulin, making diabetes worse, and we're stimulating all these other GLP-1s that we're just now starting to find out what all they're responsible for as well. That's what I don't like. They don't do all the studies. Even when they do the studies, they lie about the studies a lot of times, and they don't give all the information about it. And people are ones who suffer, and they're like, well, let's put that out there and see how that goes. We'll see when people start complaining about adverse effects, and they definitely are with these GLP-1s.
Who's funding the studies? It is the drug companies. Who is peer reviewing the studies? It is the drug companies.
Yes.
It's like top to bottom, every level that you could possibly have a conflict of interest, you have one. It's absurd. In no other organization could my beloved Utah Jazz make the rules and hire all the officials and all of a sudden win every championship. I would love that. But however, you can't do that.
I know. And that's exactly what they're doing. And drug companies, they do their studies. We already know that they lie about all their studies, and you can make any statistics say anything. I mean, we know that if you've done any studies at all or read them, you understand that studies can be crazy. But they don't even have to show, when they go around for the peer review, that they paid the peer reviewers to review this articles. When they put the paper out, nobody can see the data. The only time you can see the data that was put together to make those papers is if the drug company gets sued, and then the prosecuting attorney, he can then go in, or if they have a medical specialist, they can go in and they can break that, and they can actually look at what they use in the studies. And when they start doing that, that's when they start finding out about all these lies and everything. So now, like you said, they do the studies, they lie about the studies, then they put the study out, then they pay reviewers to do it. Then they actually pay the journals, I'm not going to name any journal, but then they pay the journals to put this study in there. Then they print off millions of copies and give them to all their drug reps to go around to all the doctors and say, look at this study, how great it is. This is the way you need to start doing it. And the drug companies are the ones who write the clinical guidelines saying, if you come in with this, and this symptom, then you need to start them on this drug and this drug. Those are all written by the drug companies too. So all the physician knows is, they have these symptoms, clinical guidelines say I need to do this. And so they put them on that medication. It's that crazy. And like you said, drug companies are funding all of it. It's a win-win as far as they're concerned.
I'm sure the doctor is taking that report and thinking like, oh, great, this is going to be some really light weekend reading. I'll just get settled into this study. No, they're going to look at the headline and they're going to look at what you do about it. And again, the protocols for these drugs, and that's all they're going to do. And that's all they have time for. So of course, that's what's going to happen.
And they're not analyzing the patient either. I mean, you get like 5 minutes with a patient. You don't have time to sit there and do all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
This is not against physicians by any means. I love physicians are great. I hate what they have to go through, but
Yep. So we talked about all kinds of different medications. I would say to the listener, the purpose of this conversation was to just kind of have a flyby and just kind of, cover some of this stuff. If you want deep dives into any of these things, go to Steve's podcast. You guys do such a great job of highlighting all of these in much, much, much greater detail with a lot of other conditions, a lot of other drugs we didn't talk about today, even things like high blood pressure, like all kinds of stuff you can find there. So be sure to go check out the podcast to get there. As we're talking about solutions and how we fix this, should we be approaching ways to try to find customization for all these different things? Meaning, does somebody need to eat a vastly different diet if they have high blood pressure versus if they have diabetes versus if they are overweight and obese versus if they have PCOS or have dementia and all these other things? Or could it possibly be that if you eat the correct diet for a species, maybe all of these things might all improve and you might be able to eat the same thing for all of it?
Are you setting me up?
I don't know. What do you think?
You are correct. Ding, ding, ding. You are correct. They all do have the same root cause. And I feel bad. I feel like I'm a broken record, but they really do. The underlying cause to almost every disease state that we have, the organ damage we have, there's two. It's continuously high insulin levels that go into insulin resistance, because insulin is horrible for all your organs. We are never supposed to have insulin levels high all the time. And all the chemicals that we put in our body. These chemicals are so inflammatory, and they're everywhere. They're in what you eat, they're in what you drink, they're in the air, they're in your cosmetics, they're in the lotions, sunscreens, everything you put on. A lot of them you can't control. They're just everywhere. But the one thing you have 100% control over is what you put in your mouth, what you eat. And the chemicals that you eat are by far the worst. Because if they're getting on your skin or anything, our skin is made wonderfully. There's not a lot of things that are able to absorb through our skin. Drug companies go to specific processes to be able to get something to actually absorb in through the skin. What you do have control over is the worst ones, is the chemicals that you put in your mouth. And that's what is made by all these food companies. So yes, since high insulin levels, that's what causes obesity. When your insulin levels are high, you force your body to store fat. You cannot, you physiologically cannot burn fat when you have high insulin levels. Same is true when your insulin levels are low. When your insulin levels are low, you cannot store fat. It can't happen. And I have a whole podcast that explains exactly why that is. But when your insulin levels are low, then all you can do is burn your own fat, which is what people want to do. They want to burn their own fat. One, they never get hungry because you're burning your own fat. You already have your energy source. You don't need carbs like the food manufacturers want you to do. So you keep your insulin levels low. That keeps you burning your own fat. So your weight's going to come off. Keep your insulin levels low. So that's going to help with your blood pressure also. And I did a whole podcast just on how carbohydrates cause high blood pressure, but that's one of them. Besides the high glucose, it's also the high insulin. So when you keep those things low, your blood pressure is going to go down also. Statins, you already heard that. Nobody should be on statin, period. I'm not telling anybody to do that. This isn't medical advice. This is medical advice. It is not medical advice. This is how I look at it and what I think, so no, don't say, oh, well, Steve said, get off the statin, so I'm off of it. but if you do, good. But so yes, so the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol, the obesity, all these are from the same thing. So when you eat correctly, you keep your glucose levels low, you keep your insulin levels low, you keep the toxic chemicals as low as you possibly can by not eating them, and you burn your own fat. We call it dining in, because you're eating the fat that's already on board. And when you dine in, you don't get hungry. That's why you get hungry. You get hungry because your body is needing nutrients. And when you sit here and you give it all these man-made carbs, there's no nutrients in it. So it stretches your stomach out. You're full for about an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3, depending on how many carbs you cram in there. And then all of a sudden it empties out of your stomach, and now you're hungry again because there's no nutrient value. And now you've got, these people saying, oh, if you're hungry, here, I've got some more food for you, because it's in every vending machine, every place all around you to do it. And you just go right back to the same thing. Increase your glucose, increase your insulin, increase your chemicals that are in your body. So yes, there is a root cause. And I 100% believe that if you would eat God-made food, real meat, real animal fat, and a little bit of fruits and vegetables are fine. Use them as a condiment if you want to, but you don't even need those. But if you want to, that's fine. Just stick with a single ingredient. A label is on a package to tell you all the chemicals they put in that food. If there's a label on it and you don't understand what's on the label, that's because it's a chemical, and you should not be putting that in your body. I mean, it's that easy. So that's why God-made food, real animal meat, real animal fat, fruits, vegetables, they're single ingredient. You don't have to look at all the chemicals that are in there, because there aren't. It's the way God made it, and we live, living things that live off living things. If you can't set that on your counter for a week without it rotting, you don't want to put that in your mouth. You want the stuff that rots. You want the stuff that is living, viable, because that's the nutrients that our body uses for everything that it needs.
It's still shocking to me when I bring in strawberries from outside and I leave them on the counter of a cold house. We don't keep our house all that warm. It stays pretty cold. And within a day, they're rotting already. Like, it's crazy. A normal strawberry, like not a normal strawberry, a store-bought strawberry would never do that. It'd be the size of your fist and would be good forever. Like, it's so different.
Yeah. I know the size, everything. And now they're spraying all these chemicals on that.
Yeah. That's a whole other aspect.
Oh, tell me about the strawberries. The glyphosate study.
I don't remember.
They were looking at glyphosate, wondering whether glyphosate actually, the glyphosate that they spray on all the fruits and vegetables, to kill all the foliage around and everything, all the weeds and everything. They were wondering if it actually absorbed into fruits and vegetables. So they got a bunch of strawberries that were sprayed that way, and they squeezed them all, and then they tested the glyphosate levels, and the glyphosate levels were out of the world. I mean, they were so high, because it doesn't just stay on the outside. It penetrates in. Now, some foods it may not, like an avocado or something like that, that has a shell, but the things that don't have a shell, all those toxins, all those pesticides and herbicides that they spray on that stuff. And now you've heard of the appeal that Bill Gates wants to do this. It's a coating that they're spraying on these fruits and vegetables now to keep them ripe longer. And he says, oh my gosh, it's all vegetables, so it's all healthy. Oh my gosh, when can we ever believe anything he says? It's crazy. And so now we have this appeal that you have to worry about. So you have to be careful when you go to a grocery store. They used to have to put a sticker on there saying it uses a pill, which is just nothing but more chemicals that they're putting on your food. And now they're hitting God-made fruits and vegetables, because they don't have to put this ingredient list, because this is just a spraying that we're putting on it. But now they're hitting all these people. They used to have to stick a sticker on it. Now I heard they just have to have a sign somewhere in the store that lets people know that they use a pill. So you have to go and ask. But in my opinion, buy from a local market. Buy from a local farmer's market. They grow the fruits and vegetables right there on their farm. They take it to the parking lot or wherever they're going to sell it, and you buy it there. You'll be a lot safer off.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. It's amazing. I was just at my client's house, actually, and there was a cherry tree growing. And, I'm mostly carnivore, so I hardly ever eat fruit. But I picked a cherry and started eating it. I'm like, wow, that's really good. And she was like, how can you stand how tart that is? And I was like, does this tart to you? That's hilarious. This is so sweet to me. It really blew me away, like how your taste buds change, how we, bred certain, fruits and vegetables and all things for so much sugar. We lose that kind of sense. I thought that was, anyway, kind of funny. Theresa, I want to ask you that this has been Steve's life and career, and he's been in the medical industry. And obviously you care about your health and your fitness and you want to do the right things. What has this journey been like for you to kind of go along and kind of learn some of this stuff? And in what ways has this really kind of changed and improved your own life?
Well, we both have learned together about all this food. Of course, he does all the deep dives. I don't do that at all. I'm like, so this is just good for me, right? So I'll just do that or try to. And, that's one thing we do talk about a lot, which is probably more where I like to focus, because Steve, he's like, oh, that's bad for me. Well, I'm not going to eat that again. And then that's it, versus other people. I mean, it's a struggle. They're addicted, so that's where I like to come into it. We both do, but I study that part more, like trying to get into the addiction, what's going on with our minds, our, the feelings, our emotions. Like, why do I keep going to my refrigerator? I still do it. Go to my refrigerator and we have nothing to eat in there but hard-boiled eggs. If I don't want a hard-boiled egg, am I really hungry? Just that type of thing. So there's so much more, because with Steve, it's just super simple. This stuff is bad. Just stop. Well, it's not that simple for most people, so and it is a struggle mentally. And so we talk about that. I have to remind him a lot.
Yeah,
so
she really does. She really does.
You got to remember, this is hard. It's hard for a lot of people, especially if they've been eating, which is great with these gentlemen he's been working with they have totally just cold turkey what they were doing before.
It's so fun. We are texting each other every time they make food. They send we're talking about the 525 pound, the 480 pound guy. They're constantly sending me the food that they're making that day and ask, is this okay? Does this look good? What's this ingredient look like? And they are nailing it. They're doing so good. I'm so proud. It's so fun to watch them.
Right. So I think they have the same personality maybe he has, it's like, okay, you say it's bad. I'm for sure doing it now, and then also, and it helps me to learn all these things as well. So it's like the more he talks about it, even though I don't understand all of it, but it's like, okay, there's definitely something going on here. So that deeper meaning for me helps me want to do better, to quit going to the refrigerator.
Yeah.
My emotions.
And that's the deal. You'll know if you're eating healthy because almost all your food will be in the refrigerator. You open up our pantries. We don't have any food in our. We have beef jerky.
We're out of it right now.
Yeah, we have beef jerky and we have large flake coconut, because I put large flake coconut in my Greek yogurt. But you look at that's all. We have some beef jerky or beef sticks and some large flake coconut, and everything else is just pots and pans. We don't keep food in our cabinets.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
It's sad to open when you're hungry.
That's true.
Or I want something sweet.
But that's also the key. Don't put it in your house if you don't want it.
If you're a person that struggles with it, just don't put it there.
Yep. That egg will start to sound good if you're really hungry enough.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you approached it that way, Theresa. I think with Steve and I being dudes, it's so much easier to just take our emotions, just bottle them up and shove them down where they're not going to come out for 30 years until they explode on somebody. Where it's harder to relate to people that, couldn't just, it wasn't as simple as I'm going to give this up. There is a process. The food is so much more than, the nutrients and the things that we like to break it down and talk about scientifically. There's culture and love and all these different other elements to it. And so I think bringing that to the table just makes such a great balance. And it's so important to talk about all of it.
Right. Yeah. And it goes back even with the GLP-1s. It's like, because people struggle, they don't want to deal with the underlying, why do I keep eating this food? Why am I still addicted to this? And so, this is easy. Well, just like any drug, or any pill you take to take care of something. It's like, well, this is easy, versus what he said. It's not the underlying, what's really going on. Because if you go off the GLP-1s and you didn't change anything or take care of any of your emotions or anything, it's like, what's going to happen then? You're going to gain back the weight. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll probably be worse.
Yeah.
I feel like if that.
But, I think people just need to be educated before they go in, especially with those things.
And I think the biggest thing, because that's what Theresa does, is she goes through the whole thing of, your thoughts start everything. So your thoughts always control your feelings control your actions control your results. And that's what her whole thing is. And so the biggest thought that I changed as soon as I found out what was going on is I used to, whenever I had something sweet in my mouth, I thought, oh man, that tastes good. Oh, I want some more of that. And now I don't. Now when I taste sweet, I was like, that's toxic. That's poison. I don't want that in my mouth. And it's that thought. But once you get that thought, and because I do read all this stuff all the time and listen to this stuff all the time and watch this stuff all the time, it really is strong that I really do think that I'll put some. Now, don't get me wrong. I will have sweets every now and then. I may go out and get frozen custard, frozen yogurt or something like that, but it's rare. I mean, we've eaten at Andy's maybe three times in the last year, but it's not something that we do all the time. It really is like a treat that we do ourselves. But whenever I taste sugar now, and because that's the thought you change, if you think this tastes great, then you're going to feel good. And then you're going to have the actions of going and getting this stuff, and you're going to eat it. And then you're going to end up with medication on top of medication. That's the result. But if you realize, you say, oh, that's sweet, that's bad, that's toxic, that's going to make me worse. Then all of a sudden it changes the feelings, like, ooh, that's toxic. It changes the feelings you have for it. So it changes your actions too. You're not going to buy it. You're not even going to finish what you have in front of you. And the result is you will become healthy. You'll have a better quality life. You'll have, be less weight. You feel great. You think clear, everything that's great. You just have a better quality life. So that's the thoughts that Theresa works with, is just find that thought that's keeping you there. And the problem with the GLP-1s is, like we said, nobody's telling them about the nutrition way to take care of this. Nobody's telling people that real animal meat and real animal fat, that will also keep you feeling full for long, and even longer than these GLP-1s, but you don't have the adverse effects of increased insulin. You don't have the increased chance of stimulating your system that's going to actually be producing more fat. So it's just changing the way you think about things is so important. Yeah, it's so important. If you don't like where you are, you have to change the way you think about whatever it was that got you there in the first place. And that's the first one. Thinking of sweet as poison, like it is, instead of something that's, oh my, that's wonderful. I need to give it to me and my kids and everybody else.
Yep. It's horrible. It's a very good reframe and a really good way to think of that. I think that's something really simple that all of us could be much better with. So, man, this has been awesome talking with you guys again. I just so love your energy and all the time we get to spend together. I absolutely love it. Good to see you. Just absolutely, I know, a little bit of passion.
Just a little bit of passion. You almost hit me a couple of times.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah. I'll make it up here.
Love it. It's great. We need more people like you guys out there sharing this message and getting it out there, because as much as we all are hoping that we're going to change the world, and we go to these conferences and we're in these big buildings with lots of people and we think everybody's on board, then we step outside, you realize, like, with such a tiny percentage of the people out there, it's still really great work. And I just think about the people that you're helping now, which, I mean, you can't replace that. So Steve and Theresa, it's been a joy. Where would you like people to go to find you and connect with you in your work?
Yeah, go to, on his podcast. So anywhere you listen to podcasts, Be Simple, Healthy Choices for Weight Loss. And then on the social media is all Dr. Steve Hughlett. And you can find him on Facebook, Instagram, and we're getting ready to start TikTok.
That's a bold move. That's a bold move.
Oh, and he's on YouTube. So all of his podcasts are on YouTube as Dr. Steve Hughlett.
Excellent. Yeah. I'll link all of that. Are you feeling ready for TikTok? That's a bridge I have not crossed yet.
That's my deal.
That's me.
That's where I jump out and she jumps in.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, best of luck.
Yeah. Well, nice.
Thank you. Best of luck. I always half joke about this. I'm always looking for like a 13-year-old girl to run our social media who's up with all of this, so that keep it going. So it's good that you're savvy with all of that.
I'm not savvy.
Well, just until we can afford somebody who does marketing.
There you go. There you go.
If any of your listeners want to do marketing, we'll take it.
Perfect. Oh, man. Again, this is such a fun conversation. Steve and Theresa, thank you so very much for all of your amazing work. I recommend everybody do, like you said, go find the podcast and make sure you subscribe, listen to the episodes. There's a lot there, and all of it is very, very shareable. And I think that it really appeals to people. So thank you so very much for all of your amazing work, and thank you for taking time to be on our show today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
It's always great seeing you.
Great to see you guys as well. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.